Our sponsors for this episode, Mark Bell's Slingshot at howmuchyoubench.net. Bench Heavy with No Pain with Mark Bell's Slingshot, thepowermagazine.com, FDA-approved muscle stim products at compexusa.com, everything you need to outfit a gym and yourself at roguefitness.com, powerlifting apparel with an attitude at 8manstrong.com, Harry's Razors at harrys.com. Get an amazing shave at half the price. Harry's will give you $5 off your first order with promo code PowerCast. Stop overpaying for a great shave. Go to harrys.com right now at the link below and enter the code PowerCast at checkout. And finally, our newest sponsor, bodybuilding.com. Bodybuilding.com is the world's #1 fitness website and supplement store. Bodybuilding.com also has free fitness plans for every level. Visit bodybuilding.com today to become your best self. Our guest for episode 130 of the PowerCast is Max Aita. Max is a former Olympic lifter who a few years ago sustained a career-ending injury. He was not able to continue in the sport that he loved, and the question became what to do next. The answer turned out to be powerlifting for himself and coaching both Olympic lifting and powerlifting. He was our guest back on episode 22 of the PowerCast in the pre-video era, and we were really glad that we could get him back on the show because he's opening a new chapter of his life in Southern California, so we get to hear all about that. The video that you're seeing right now is Max helping Mark straighten out his squat, which is something that Mark's always looking for help with. Be sure to check out that video on this channel. Program note, Silent Mike is not on this episode. He was on injured reserve or physically unable to perform, one of those lists, something like that. Basically, he was just too sick and couldn't make it in. He'll be back next week, so no worries. If you like this episode, please hit those like and share buttons. Now on with episode 138 of the PowerCast.
Here he comes. Right after the drums.
Recorded live at Super Training Gym in West
Max
Sacramento,
looking around in fear.
California.
Where the fuck is he coming from?
Alongside Silent Mike and Jim McD, here's your host, Mark Bell.
That's me. I'm supposed to say something.
Something.
All right, we just got back from the Arnold Classic with got to meet some awesome fans.
Yeah,
that was
absolutely.
Fucking awesome. Me and Jim McD.
The most ever.
And yeah, it was fucking thing was slammed. It was packed. And we lost one of our homies. Apparently, we lost Silent Mike.
Yeah.
In the mix. He's not dead, but he's nearly dead.
And he's really silent.
He's very silent right now. He caught a little bit of when you're in Ohio. I think everybody gets it. They come down with some diabetes, just because the middle of the country is so fucking fat.
Yeah.
And yes, I am fat shaming.
It's contagious.
Poor Silent Mike is just laid out. I think he's got sore throat and shit like that, and a fever and all that kind of good stuff. But a lot of times that happens to us a lot when we travel. You know, we travel for meets and stuff like that, competitions. Shit gets a little stressful, and you're out of your element. You're not eating as much, not sleeping as much, and sure enough, you're fucked and you're sick for a week.
Hey, Smokey, did Silent Mike sleep when you guys were there? You guys were roomies. Wasn't much sleeping going on. That's what I thought.
That's what he
there we go. Sick. There's the answer right there.
A lot of late night bingo.
Bingo, bango, bongo.
Yeah. Damn. Using his ass as a pillow, perhaps. Some booty clapping, huh?
Awesome.
All right. Well, we're here with the very temperamental Max Aita. Those of you may know him from his squat antics on the interwebs, squatting the bar all the way up to 6 plates or so, and then all the way back down. Yeah. I think he talks in kilos or something. He talks some weird language, so we'll try to avoid that. We'll try to speak American on the show.
Still undefeated against the squat stand too.
Yeah, yeah. And then there's that video. That video where he got upset and pulverized the squat rack with some insane, and I didn't know that you knew moves like that, but with some insane, I'd call it Sambo for lack of a better term or knowledge. I just think maybe it was some jiu-jitsu mixed in there a little bit or something.
I don't think
Taekwondo is like when you throw, right? You throw people.
Yeah, there was a lot of. I just like to mix it up and just pick and choose.
Oh, like Bruce Lee.
Yeah,
you're a little bit like Bruce.
Jeet Kune Do or something. Whatever.
My martial arts like a buffet. It's an all-you-can-eat buffet of different styles.
You've got everybody's attention that's
Yeah.
listening now. Now they just turned it up. People that are listening at work had just turned it up and got in trouble probably.
If Mike were here,
buffet.
he'd be talking about his ice cream buffet about right now.
Yeah, Mike has a dream of opening up an ice cream buffet. One entire wall dedicated to froyo, and another entire wall dedicated to gelato, and then another wall of regular ice cream.
Here's an idea.
Uh-oh.
Why not an ice cream trough?
Ice cream trough.
You go in, you pay for a spoon, and there's
you
just
just
a
eat.
communal
Oh,
trough for everyone to enjoy.
yeah. Well, hey, let's just cut out the spoon.
Yeah, just head in. Just,
Use your face. You know, it's
that'd be
$5.
excellent.
Just use your face. Bobbing for ice cream.
all
Bobbing
you
for
can
cookie
eat
dough.
with your mouth.
Yeah.
God damn, that would hurt.
But your mouth only. Oh, yeah.
With your teeth and your face.
The ice cream headache would fucking
Well,
kill you.
that's where the money. That's where you're making the money.
Oh, yeah.
You can only put your face in ice cream for so long.
Right.
That's
No
true.
one's gonna sit there for 3 hours, right? I mean,
There's some pretty fat people out there. A couple people might ride.
you know,
it
if you
out
go
pretty
there,
good.
if you go there late at night when they're closing too,
Right.
you get all the like melted ice cream.
Oh, yeah.
You get a deal on that, like the mat shot at a bar.
and you're
Just
at
wring it out.
like Cold Stone Creamery, I always think like these guys should be jacked trying to scoop all
Right.
that fucking hard ice cream out
Right,
of there all
yeah.
the time, and then they mash it all up and they put brownies and shit in it. Or if you order like I do, there's brownies in it, just because I'm fat. Birthday cake remix, god damn.
Oh,
that's
that
good.
one's good.
Oh,
and
man.
the chocolate peanut butter. one.
Oh.
Oh my god, that's the best thing
Let's
ever.
go. Fuck
Yeah.
this. Fuck the
That
podcast.
sounds good to me.
Let's
So
go eat
there's,
some.
there's one down the street, kind of. So
Is there?
Actually, they're in that center over there. There is. Yeah,
Oh, shit.
over
By the pizza and all that
Yeah,
shit,
yeah,
and the Home
yeah.
Depot,
Yeah,
and god damn
all that shit. Yeah.
It's kind of like the Benihana of ice cream, right?
yeah.
They
It's
don't
a-
really do much of a show. There's not like these guys flipping like Reese's.
No,
Pieces
there
into his
should be,
hat.
though.
They,
There really should be, yeah.
if they can figure out how to light it on fire,
They should Horatio
Oh.
Sands that shit. Remember he throws the toast in
Yeah.
his butt, or French toast in his butt crack, and fucking does a little dance and stuff.
Yeah.
Amazing. The guy's like, this tastes so good.
Yeah,
All right.
that's a good idea.
Well, I think with Max Aita here, we should talk about, you know, something more than just bullshit. We should probably talk to him about some like lifting weights or something. So let's start out by talking about your current situation, what you're doing right now, and what you're about to do. So let's kick it off with that.
Well, right now I'm going to be heading down to Orange County literally today, and I'm going to be building the weightlifting, powerlifting team at Team Juggernaut. So
Damn,
in
that's
Juggernaut
fucking
HQ.
awesome.
Yeah, it's going to be good. We're going to build
Real
a-
weightlifters of the OC.
Yeah, that's the plan. I assume everyone looks like that on the show.
Yeah,
when you get
I
down
think
there,
so.
right?
All the
Kinda-
chicks
Well,
are
Chad
blonde.
looks good.
Yeah.
He's only 351 right now.
Well, so he's svelte.
What a little
That's
bitch,
good,
right?
yeah, that's great.
cutting hard.
Yeah.
He's on that.
What do you say to somebody who goes from like 370 to 350? Like you lost 20 pounds, but I mean you can't just be like, "Hey, you look great still." I mean like 60 more to go and you'll be spot on.
I think when they tell you about their weight loss, you just say, mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, it could be worse if you were like 700 and you went down to 600. That's, 100-pound weight loss is
Yeah, yeah.
incredible, but
You're still
Percentage
look like
wise,
shit
you're
still.
still a fucking
Yeah.
moose,
yeah.
man.
Well, when somebody benches 400 and they weigh 400, you just
Yeah.
kind of go,
Yeah.
kind of give them a little nod.
So you're doing a push-up, is what you're saying.
Wait, you're saying if I get to 400, I can bench 400?
I think so.
So that's the
Max is known for his bench pressing. We'll get into that
Yeah.
later.
Oh, yeah. So I just keep thinking about it when you say it like that. The horrific memories. It's like I was molested by the bench press when I was a kid.
Hey,
Every time I get on there, it's just like tense and
we don't have to talk about that on the show, but we can. We've had people tear up on the show before. We've
Yeah,
teared up a little bit ourselves
exactly,
on the show.
Exactly.
yeah.
It's a touchstone for a lot of people, that
Yeah.
bench press molestation.
Touch is the key word there.
Exactly. Good touch, bad touch.
So
Was there a slingshot involved?
there was two of them.
Oh, I see where this is going. Hey, now.
Yeah, so that's the plan. I mean, that's the tentative plan for the future in terms of
What are you
me
doing
going
with
there.
your current gym? Is it just-
Joanne's going to stay.
okay.
My wife's going to stay here and run that. We've got a really solid team of people lifting there.
Yeah, I was
going
to say, you guys built up a great gym. You
Yeah.
can't just fucking leave it high and dry.
No, it's gonna stay totally intact and run the way it has. One of the things that happened running a gym or becoming a coach, like you start to wear a bunch of different hats at work, right? You got gym owner, coach.
It does look weird when you wear more than one hat at a
right,
time.
and that's strange. So, you end up getting a place where I was coaching everybody, and the quality of coaching was degrading, and you're just working from burning candle from both ends, right?
Yeah, you're only allowed to make as much money as the hours that you put in.
Yeah,
you can only
exactly.
work with so many people at a time.
Exactly.
Yeah,
it'd be great if you could work with everybody individually. So you could have this fucking awesome team of people, but realistically, you kind of can't.
Yeah.
And the hours of the day, it just becomes too great. It becomes too great of a task to try to figure it all out.
Well, then if you're trying to train yourself too.
Yeah,
right.
That totally stopped.
Yeah, it's like where does that happen?
Yeah, I mean the other side of that coin too is that when you're coaching everybody, you can get into this place where you're stuck doing too much coaching. You're just saying too much. You're just too into it, coaching, too many cues, too much stuff going on.
People can only absorb so much at one time.
Also,
only change so many things at one time.
In any sport, anything, you have to learn how to do it sort of on your own. I mean, you got, you squat or whatever, you get a cue, but you got to kind of internalize that and use it to fix your technique and kind of play with it for yourself and learn how to do it, from practice, rather than just a coach saying do 50 snatches today, and every single time your coach is telling you what to do. You become dependent on them. And
I've just realized something. I disagree with everything you just said. I'm just kidding. No, I agree 100% with what you're saying, because sometimes you'll get somebody who comes in the gym. It might be, let's just say it's a young male lifter who weighs 180 pounds, and they're capable of squatting like 250. Mm-hmm. If somebody who squats a 250-pound squat is not a huge squat, even for somebody at that body weight. It's not a bad starting place to be. Right. But really hammering them with cues all day is going to be a lot less effective than them just working over a period of time and getting stronger. Now, obviously, they need some guidance and they need some help, but a lot of that's provided by YouTube. A lot of that's out there already. And getting a couple cues, some instruction, and then just doing 3 sets of 5 and 5 sets of 5 and sets of 10 and so on is going to help them build up a base. Then things like mobility start to go out the window, like mobility issues, things like their knees caving in, some of these kind of default things that we see happen all the time, they start to disappear over a period of time just as soon as the person gets stronger.
Yeah.
Yeah, we get so worried about people developing bad habits that we don't let them develop habits sometimes.
Yeah, exactly.
We're constantly correcting things, and so they never find any kind of groove.
Yeah. So the thing that we kind of wanted to move out of this year was hiring other coaches to kind of do that and take over. It's easy if you're the only person in your world. You're Max Aita at Max's gym, like you're the be all end all of it. The buck stops there.
Right.
But you get stuck because obviously my knowledge is limited, and if I don't have anyone bouncing ideas off or disagreeing with me or giving me better suggestions, then I'm not going to get better as a coach. So we wanted to bring in more people and establish a successful program because, or through the use of multiple coaches as a sounding board, and just get more ideas, right? You got to keep learning, keep things kind of moving. You get 2 or 3 people working on one program. Constructively, you can get a much better program out of it because you have people pulling from different sides, right? I want to do more of this, they want to do more of that. Right. You kind of find a balance. So I think it's a good move for everybody. That kind of coincided with me, going down to Juggernaut. And my plan there is to coach people in that same way. I would rather, it makes sense for me if we're going to build a better team or better lifters or a bigger club or a bigger, enterprise, then we have to start coaching coaches to do the job,
Right.
And
Wouldn't you say it's probably true that, in the weightlifting community, it's kind of weird to me how Louie Simmons has never really popped up, at least as far as I know. I don't really follow
I just saw he
a
wrote
ton.
that book.
What's that?
I just read the book.
Did you read it?
Yeah.
I saw you put it on Facebook.
Yeah,
Put out a new book?
Yeah, he wrote a weightlifting book.
Well, what did you think?
Cool.
Honestly.
I think there's an irony to it in that he says, Louie's thing is like American coaches don't know what they're doing, can't do it. He's an American coach, going to tell you how to do it.
Yeah.
So there's an initial irony there, which is like, well, okay, let's see. I think he's got, I'm sure he's knowledgeable. He's had success in what he does. I believe if the solution to a problem was as simple as one person, like if one person understood the solution to the whole problem, then we would have figured it out already. Someone would have accidentally done it.
Right.
There's nothing groundbreaking ever happening in these sports. I mean, the world record clean and jerk was, the heaviest clean and jerk ever done in competition was done in the 80s. No one's exceeded that.
Yeah.
So we can't say that there's a huge amount.
Didn't somebody
of,
just do that, or is it a snatch?
No, he just broke the record, but it was adjusted after they changed the weight classes. He just got popped too for some peptide.
Hey now,
Yeah.
there you go. I like that. I like the guy even more.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, regardless of that stuff,
Right.
The whole like, here's a solution. It's this easy. It's this simple.
So why do you think? I mean, I hear that all the time. People say, "Oh, American lifters fucking suck," and I hear coaches kind of say American lifters suck, and and then the lifters say the coaches suck, and everyone says the whole program sucks. What do you think the real issue is? I mean, I don't know. I'm unaware of like the medal situation, but at least as far as I know, we haven't medaled in a really long time, except for maybe some females.
Not anyone. I mean, maybe there's been some junior medals.
Right.
We've had some exceptional people come up.
So I've heard this argument before, and just kind of tell me what you think about this. Is some people will say, oh well, in Ohio, kids are born with a football in their hand, and people have their eye on the prize. They have their eye on football, basketball, baseball, the money sports where there's a lot of money, and that's what you grow up starting to do when you're a kid. When you're 5, 6, 7, as soon as you can play a sport, your parents shove you off into a sport.
Right.
They have you try a bunch of different things, and then you come up with whatever you're the best at. And there's millions and millions of participants, whereas weightlifting, there's probably only a few thousand participants.
There's probably like maybe 15, 20,000 now, and most of them are CrossFitters. I think, I love America. And I think that if we wanted to do it, we could do it.
Right.
I think it wouldn't take that long. I think if the United States all of a sudden treated weightlifting like football, we'd win the Olympics every time.
Right.
I just don't think it's that dramatic. I mean, there's talent here that's out of this world. I mean,
look at what Blaine Sumner just did.
I know, right?
A,
I mean,
right?
Blaine Sumner, you got Bryce Lewis, and those are in powerlifting. I mean, there's a kid.
Yeah,
CJ
Bryce Lewis is
Cummings.
doing handstand walks and all kinds of stuff, and he practices Olympic lifting. Like he's extremely athletic. He used to play volleyball.
Yeah. But there's
extremely
like,
athletic.
there's
He's also
physically
got a great big ass, but
Oh,
that's
yeah,
another
yeah.
issue altogether.
physically talented people here that are just out of this world. I mean, there was that kid, just some, we always see some stupid video of a football player doing some power clean or something.
Right.
The point is, like, there's talented people out there that come in, to the world of weightlifting, or maybe they don't come into it because football is there or some other sport is there. That's still kind of a weak argument. It's just, I mean, there's talent that's not playing football. I mean, how many guys don't get to the NFL, right?
True.
Right.
Money is a big thing. There's not a lot of money in it.
Yeah.
There's like 10 different little factors that add up.
Right.
What about the argument about steroids? Because people say that USADA is more proactive than a lot of the other countries' anti-doping agencies.
Here's what I'll say: there's clearly lifters in this country using steroids, right?
Yeah.
There's a bunch of failed tests.
What?
There's more failed tests coming out on a regular basis. They're still not beating the rest of the world.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to name names of people, but like you can see, like
They should be winning and then getting popped.
Guys
and losing.
guys getting popped in the B session at nationals are not, and they're on drugs. Like that's not the answer.
Yeah.
They're not even close.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The story I've been told by like the top guys, by Abajev, the Russian guys I've met. Like the story
Your
is
former coach, by the way.
Yeah, the story goes, they take a bunch of kids, 10, 12, 13 years old. They give them a bunch of D-ball. They give them a bunch of steroids. They start training as hard as they can. They push them. They like double days.
I love this story,
super
by the way.
hard, super hard training. Top guys from that class move to the next class. Same situation. Again, top guys from that class move to the next class. I mean, it's just, they weed out. They find an Ilya Ilin. At 13 years old, they start giving them drugs. I mean, there's so much like internet stuff that people, the conjecture, right? Like I can assume they wouldn't do
You're
this.
saying
they
that's
wouldn't do
what that's what people say.
No, that's what I've been told by
That's
the
what you've
top people,
Gotcha,
right?
okay.
That's
So
essentially the
so it may
program.
be true.
Yeah, I mean,
And so they're doing all this before they get to the point
They
of
just-
of
it's just,
testing.
you
Like
know-
they're old enough to be tested. They're not. They're.
there's a lot of corruption in weightlifting.
You take
Yeah.
steroids before you fully are developed. Did you know it can make your dick bigger? Boom! Write that down.
That's a recommendation, I think, for Mark, for anyone listening to
yeah,
this.
yeah. Anyone who's got a kid with a small dick, any priests out there, they're
But that's like I think more than
Little Smokey over the
Podcast
corner
is
just
crashing.
died.
none of this is going to be able to go.
No, anywhere. That's okay. We don't care.
The underlying thing there is not the recipe. It's the mentality. I mean, there's a country, there's a mentality of, and I'm sure that exists in fucking Texas high school football.
Right.
I mean, I know kids that played football at, other schools that weren't even very good that were all taking shit.
Yeah.
The mentality is win, right?
Yeah.
Win. What do we have to do to win? What makes the most sense? You have a drug that, you have the mentality there is so different. The culture is so different. You have guys that would talk to us, the Bulgarians would talk to us and say, why would you train without drugs? I mean, you're not making progress.
Right.
It's different. It's different here, though, right? That's
Yeah,
that's not what we do.
Well,
It
even
isn't.
even the figure competitors and the fitness girls, that there's all the different classes of shit. There's a bikini and figure and bodybuilding. A lot of them are taking substances that are illegal. Just to get on stage for some of those.
I can't
competitions.
believe, when I started weightlifting, there was no drug positives, and that was just like old shit. You did that was the 70s, the 80s. No one did that. 10 years of lifting, 10 years of competing, all this. Maybe there was like one guy that failed a test as like a master's athlete. With
Everybody talks about what a dick he was. Right?
Yeah, right. That one asshole.
Fuck
right?
him. He
Fucking, he's
cheat
not
motherfucker. Probably uses straps too. Pussy.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So there was it was none, and then CrossFit comes in, and I can tell you right now, next year is going to be a lot of. You're going to see a bunch of failed tests.
Name names.
There's a bunch of failed tests,
Yeah,
and
right.
what's fucking shocking to me, and I'm just blown away, and I've been around a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Like the women, I can't believe the women taking it's just, it doesn't make sense. What is the end goal there? It's just a strange, I get it it makes sense if you're Marion Jones,
Yeah.
you're going to go and try and win a gold medal at the Olympics. That's where
Right.
you're at. What about the other 300 people behind you that are not even fucking close? It's just a strange choice that seems to be made really easily and readily. Sure, these girls just doing this stuff.
Yeah.
It's amazing to me that they kind of have random testing a lot of times, and I know with CrossFit Games they pick people that place in certain ways, and you don't want to be unfair to people, but at the same time, somebody with a keen eye for it should be in charge of it as well, and they should be able to pick out a few people for random selection.
There's
as
no
well.
actual random testing by USADA. It's not random. It's just unannounced.
Right.
They're very clear about the fact that they seek out people that they believe are taking drugs.
Right. Okay.
There's
So
no
they're-
it's not fair. It's all about
They're
catching people.
profiling, in other words.
Oh yeah. There's a very
Right.
it's very much about finding people and trying to catch them,
Right.
Which is another
Yeah.
that's the other reason why we're trying to the Bulgarians used to say, I don't understand why you're trying to catch yourselves. Why are you
policing
trying to
yourself
catch
like that?
yourself?
Yeah.
But
Because America, we like punishing each other.
I do, yeah. The joke is that in hell there's these 3 cauldrons, right? And every person that dies goes into these cauldrons, and there's a devil with a pitchfork in front of one. All the I'll change the analogy here, but all the Bulgarians are in one cauldron, and they're building up a wall. They're climbing on top of each other to try and climb out to get one guy out.
Yeah.
And there's a devil on the top poking him, so he falls back in. And then the other cauldron, whatever, some other country, the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Over the third one, where the Americans are, there's no devil. Because every time somebody tries to climb up out of the top, someone else pulls him back down.
That's great.
Right? So that's the...
Yeah, exactly.
You know.
We don't like anybody to get too get too uppity.
I'd rather everybody was losing than you're winning.
Then you're winning.
Right.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I think that a point that you made earlier is one that doesn't sink in with a lot of people, that most of the people out there who are using steroids in whatever still suck.
Yeah.
It's not making them supermen or women.
There's Abajev said the same thing. There's millions of people that go to a gym and lift weights, and there's millions of people that take drugs, but there's only one world champion.
Right.
Right. I mean, at the Arnold this weekend, I've got a pretty good eye. I can tell you most, of
Your
the
eyes are
time.
open there.
Yeah, I pretty much. And these guys, I'm sorry, dudes. Most of you never did anything.
Yeah.
You just Yeah, just like your self-esteem is tied into your size, but you don't
being
really
jacked.
look good.
There's
but,
a clear distinction in my mind because of where we live. We live in the greatest place in the whole world.
Right.
And there's a distinction in my mind between you can't say everybody's doing it, so I'm going to do it, and it's not cheating, because it is.
Yeah.
I mean, there's just no way around that. As much as you want to masturbate your ego and convince yourself it's something else, I mean, that's what it is.
Yeah.
Whether you have a problem with that or not is totally up to you.
Right.
In the United States, in USA Weightlifting, in IPL or in the USAPL, the rules are the rules. If you want to play, you play by the rules.
Right.
It's just how it is, right? The rest of the world is different. If you're in Russia, then yeah, you do what the Russians do. But here, you don't do it. It's totally like if you want to go take a bunch of fucking whatever Anavar and clenbuterol and get all ripped and go to the beach and do whatever you do and you work at fucking Costco or something. You know what I mean? Like you're just some guy doing whatever for fun. Then yeah, go whatever. I don't. That doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, you're not competing against other people
Right.
that have that band in their sport.
When you bring it into a sport where people have already said, hey, this is what we're going to do. This is the rules.
Right.
And because of the place you are, because of the people here, the standard is going to be obviously not 100%, but much more, 99% of the people are playing by the rules because that's a cultural thing here, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of pride here. There's a lot of pride for what you do and what you accomplish and who you are. Whereas, like in those Bulgarians, there was very different. It was very much like,
It'd be interesting is to just lift the band all together and see what happens, because
I
that
don't
would
know
give
if
you a decent indication on what people are doing now, already without the.
yeah. I wonder how much it would change. I mean, we have seen people that have at least sworn to us many times that they're drug free. They compete in a drug tested federation. Right. And we've seen them time and time again lift more weight than people that. Yeah.
I mean, take for example, using somebody like Bryce Lewis. I think he just deadlifted like 777 or 765 or something.
I was going to kill myself after I watched his performance.
So, like, you take him, right, and you take Stan Efferding. I know Stan would defend himself because he's getting older, but Stan Efferding looks like a goddamn monster.
Yeah.
He's fucking jacked as hell. You put those two together and you ask everybody, hey, who's going to lift more weight?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And, right now, Bryce would be able to beat him, even though Stan has lifted more in the past.
Sure.
But it's just I think the limitations that people put on themselves because they don't take steroids or because they're not taking them or because they made a choice is ridiculous, because I think there's people doing some insane shit that are playing by the rules, that aren't taking anything. And it's easy to sit back and go, oh, well, that guy, he must take stuff because he's stronger than me. Yeah. But we've been around it a long time. We know that's not true.
That's
not true.
That's the most impressive thing is people like Jesse Norris. I mean, he failed. That's the saddest thing is that he failed for some total bullshit stimulant. Right, but that kid's insane. I mean,
but even taking the second place winner, which is Lane Norton. Yeah, you can go down the line as far as you need to. Either way, the guys are extremely impressive. Like Lane squatted like 672, I believe. Yeah. There's people squatting regardless of whether you think those guys are on them. Not all of them. Not everybody's on them.
Yes.
It's not. It's not in the 90 percentile that are doing it.
Yeah.
And those guys to drive the thing home more is those guys are lifting more than some of the guys that take shit.
Yeah. So it's a different it's a very different mentality. It's a very different thing. I remember me and a really good U.S. coach were sitting down talking to a couple of lifters, and one of the lifters was saying, "Oh, well, what about the rest of the world taking this and that, and shouldn't we do something like that?" And he made a point. He said, if you become the best lifter in the country and you actually have a shot at doing something, then maybe you should think about that. But until you're that place, what's the point? You're just cheating to beat people that aren't,
I think Dave Tate had a really good Dave Tate had a really good breakdown of all that. And he's kind of said, if you're taking steroids to start on your high school football team, odds of you getting Division I scholarship probably aren't great. Yeah. Because you're barely hanging on anyway, and you have to do some things that other people aren't doing.
Right.
And then you kind of use, if you have to take them, in Division I football.
Yeah.
Odds of you really being great in the NFL, like you might make a team because you might have the size and the strength and some of the other attributes they're looking for. But however, if you take them when you're already in the NFL and you're already kicking a lot of ass for 5-10 years, you know, Peyton Manning's under some scrutiny for some like growth hormone or something like that. But like Barry Bonds, I personally think Barry Bonds was clean for a very long time.
Oh, yeah, I don't think it was until the last few years.
I think he whooped some ass for a good decade, and then was like, you know, he started taking some stuff. People started popping some home runs, and he wanted to be on board with that, and he went from being great to being the greatest.
Yeah, a lot of those guys that were on though that got popped, that were part of the report and the Mitchell report and stuff, were very B-level players. You know,
a lot of those guys sucked. Right? Especially in comparison.
Well, we know a bunch of things that are true. We know that drugs are not enough. We know that drugs are not the complete picture. We also know that training isn't the complete picture, right? Because we have people that, you know, we've seen the way they train. I mean, there's tons of great information now.
You can't make sense of it sometimes because one guy trains so wild, another guy trains so reserved. You're like, I don't know what the fuck's
Well, that's the point, right? There's 100 different ways to train. There's 100 different systems, 100 different people coming up with new things. I mean, it's new, old, whatever. It's all the same. Everyone goes and lifts weights. That's the system. Drugs aren't the only answer. The training's not the only answer, and the talent's not the only answer, right? It's a combination of a lot of things. It's just a lot of little smaller things that don't add up.
The intangibles that everybody talks about.
I think the biggest thing is, like, if we wanted to do it, it would happen.
Yeah.
And if the United States, you know, decided the collective, you know, if suddenly weightlifting was as popular as football, then there's no doubt that we would have guys winning probably without drugs. I mean, the talent that exists in this country is outrageous. I mean,
think about it. If you were to take a pill that, you know, allowed you to make the right choices, or the strongest, most powerful choices, kind of above and beyond everybody else all the time for a fucking decade, that would destroy steroids. That would blow steroids out of the water. You know, if you woke up early, you made sure you ate, you never missed a meal, all your meals were always healthy, you were always on time for your training always.
You took a pill that didn't let you get hurt.
Yeah,
I mean, you know, there's a million things there.
And if people were recruited based on both their talent and their commitment, their ability to commit, their coachability, all that stuff at a young enough age, and that would make a huge difference too.
There's a big thing I think people believe. There's a lot of weird myths. Like, people believe this idea that people in other countries are forced to do it. Yeah. And you can't force. I don't personally believe it's possible to force someone to do that, because in order to do well at it, you have to care about it.
Yeah. Right.
You know, the idea that, like, oh, they just take these kids and stick them in this training hall and do it. I mean, they may force them in the beginning, force them as much as anyone forces a person to take, you know, try football or something when they're a kid. That may exist in terms of pushing people, but at some point, if someone doesn't want to do it, you can't make them have passion for it. And eventually they're just going to fall to the wayside when there's kids that actually want to do it. Yeah. There's people that want to try and do it. They do love it, and they do
people
push
that
themselves.
are hungry. They want to please their coach. They want to make sure that they're always
someone that has some aptitude for it and wants to do it. That's the biggest, you know.
Why do you think so? Like, kind of back to my original question a while back. I kind of said, like, Louie Simmons has popped up in powerlifting. I myself have popped up in powerlifting. There's a few others, and then you got like Kelly Starrett is a big name in mobility and stuff like that, and he's kind of a go-to. It doesn't seem like there's a huge go-to person for weightlifting. There's kind of a variety of some different coaches. Why do you think that is? Is any?
There's a variety.
There's like Penlay, but I don't see him making a lot of videos and stuff and being active. And does it maybe have to do with the sport? Like, the sport's a little bit more reserved than powerlifting. Powerlifters get all fucking fired up, and maybe it's personality.
I think it has more to do with the fact that it's really challenging. The sport is incredibly hard, right? It's powerlifting is, there's only one quality. You just have to be stronger. I mean, even if the bar slows down, you just have to. If you produce enough force, you'll make lifts, right? So weightlifting is so much more complex, and to have like a Louie Simmons system where, oh, hey, here's a system, do it, it works every time, or works with people, like, here's the mobility WOD, like, it's easy to palate, it's easy to do, it's easier to get a hold of. weightlifting is challenging. You can't just say, hey, here's the system, it's easy, because people can do it and fail and get nowhere. There's people that train for years and make no progress. I mean, in powerlifting, that's
you're right.
rare.
I mean, now that I think about it, I mean, I don't follow much of weightlifting, but there is all kinds of different information, and some of it's probably false information. You hear a lot of times about, people using plyometrics to get better at it, and you hear all kinds of different things. And it's, but it is interesting to me that a coach hasn't really, popped up to the forefront of I don't know, I guess being like an internet personality almost,
I think there's a lot of excitement around lifting, and the type of people that get into it are very much more cerebral than the type that get into like powerlifting and bodybuilding.
Right.
We're in the Bay Area. Yeah. I mean, we have there's more lifters in the Bay Area than there are almost anywhere else.
Right.
I mean, Southern California has more, but they're giant, right? They're 3 or 4 times the size. So that type of personality, these intelligent people that like to think about it, they like to, the challenge is there. So I think that is kind of something that weeds out a lot of the hype men and the sort of like
a lot of the ones we've run into are pretty quiet.
Yeah. It's also it's an enormous amount of work to make a good athlete. I mean, it's an enormous amount of work from a coach and an athlete to get someone from point A to point B. I had lifters that I coached for 2 years before they did anything.
Right.
Powerlifting in the same side, you might have somebody in 6 months really take off,
break a record.
Yeah.
Somebody might break a record in their first meet.
Yeah.
That probably doesn't happen in Olympic lifting,
no, it's
right?
very rare. I mean, the number
because there's been one federation for the most part. There's one federation
is,
for the last however many fucking years.
The standard is so much higher that it's difficult to achieve it. Right, it takes a lot more discipline and work and all that. So I don't know. I guess it's interesting why.
Do you think the conjugate system works well for Olympic lifting, or have you personally used any of it yourself or with some of your athletes? Some form of it, like variations of a clean, variations of a snatch.
Yeah, I think that's what most coaches. I mean, there's basically 2 systems in weightlifting that are popular. One is sort of a very intuitive, the quote unquote Bulgarian system, which is really a terrible name for it, but there's the Bulgarian system and the more traditional Russian, like standard kind of, periodized program where you have a phasic structure to training. You have like, strength phases and power phases and, realization phases. Right. And then in the Bulgarian system, it's a very intuitive sort of really intense training phases and then maybe slightly less intense training, but it's almost the same for a very long period of time, year in, year out. Very, very small selection of exercises, very small, narrow band of repetition ranges and methods you're using. Those 2 systems are the most popular. By far the most successful is probably the Russian style, just because it's been used by more countries, right? The more countries can adopt it, it's much more middle of the road, right? It's extremely successful. They both are, both countries and both methods. And the reality is that they did combine too. I mean, in the end, you end up having weightlifting was trained a certain way a long time ago, and the way it's trained now is very different. The books that Louie Simmons used all references, for all his stuff. Mm-hmm. I talked to a Russian lifter recently in the last couple of years, and he said, "Oh, all that stuff's that's old. That's old shit. We don't do any of that anymore. They don't train like that at all. That's the old Medvedev like." It's totally different now. So the principles are all sound and they're there, right? It's just very different. Do both
styles utilize like special exercises, assistance movements, stuff like that, or not so much? More like drills instead of assistance movements?
I think what we end up struggling with is we try to attach systems like, oh, this coach uses that system. Mm-hmm. So the Bulgarian system, right, we know it's okay. We only do snatch, clean, and jerk, and squat. But when I trained with the man who invented it, he had me do clean pulls for sets of 10 and overhead squats with a clean grip. And the thing I think people miss is that it's a coach's system. Right. What is Abadjeyev's system? What is Medvedev's system? What is Mark Bell's system? What is, Louie Simmons? His system is his. It's not. It's not.
And it's constantly changing. Like the 10 rep thing might have been. You might have met him when he was on a kick for reps. You know?
He may have also just done it because he was like, I'm fucking bored today.
Right.
That's the thing that people miss.
Or he just could have been like, your shit's fucking sloppy. You need a lot of repetition at it.
Yeah. Not everything anybody tries actually works out.
Yes.
But how would you know unless you tried?
So I think the more distilled down version is you have the brute force method, which is let's take the hardiest athletes we can and push them as hard as possible and do what we have to drive them to the next level. Or the other system, which is let's make a methodical approach that builds on, one phase to the next, step to step. Both approaches are fine. They both work well.
Has CrossFit, you think, driven Olympic lifting to become better? Because like some of the lifts some of the CrossFitters are doing, the weak CrossFitters, as everybody kind of always was saying a couple of years ago, I think that has been put to rest finally.
The best part of CrossFit for weightlifting coaches, that's a gift to weightlifting coaches, is that the athletes they start to get from CrossFit have a level of GPP that is exceptional, that they don't have to develop.
Right.
So your coach,
they can recover from anything.
Well, I've had athletes come in the gym that were great CrossFitters, and right off the bat, they're the best athlete in the gym.
Right.
They have the highest level of fitness. They can tolerate great amounts of training. They can make progress quickly, and they keep that fitness level because they generally do CrossFit for the whole time.
Have you seen any of these CrossFitters that you think would be able to make the Olympic team?
Not in the men. The men are not.
Maybe the chicks?
The girls for sure. Yeah.
Right. Because you kind of hear it all the time. People are like, oh, if he did Olympic lifting for a year, and that's probably discrediting some of the other Olympic lifters.
I think to be a male lifter, you have to basically devote most of your time to it because the amount of energy the amount of fatigue you generate because you're lifting bigger weights.
Right.
The men fatigue much more. The intensity of their training is much harder. So
some of the numbers though, like that a Rich Froning, was doing, does that match up to some of the lifts?
He's probably decent, but he's not. He's not going to win anything significant. He's probably a pretty decent little athlete. He's a good, he's an okay guy. No, he's. I'm sure he would place well, but I don't think he's going to come out and blow people out of the water. The 85s, he's about 85 kilos, maybe about 200 pounds. Mm-hmm. So maybe like in between a couple of weight classes, those guys are probably snatching as clean and jerk.
Right.
But he's good.
Those guys snatching like 200 kilos or something?
No, in his weight class, the American record's about 170.
Okay.
374 pounds.
One of the things that people say is that CrossFit has really benefited weightlifting and powerlifting and gymnastics and other things, but will there be anyone who comes from the CrossFit side into one of those specialties and really excels? And so far, there really hasn't been.
Yeah.
Right?
There is a kid right now that someone pointed out to me that's deadlifting like over 800 pounds. He's a CrossFitter.
Really? Holy shit.
So somebody like that might come in and really wreck shop. But the thing is, these guys love CrossFit. So I'd imagine that when we do see that, it'll probably be when these people turn, when they're in their 40s.
And they decided that full-on CrossFit is not working for them anymore.
Maybe they gain a little bit of body weight and they decide I want to kind of follow a strength thing a little bit more.
I had my coach, my old coach from Montana. He had a girl walk into his gym. She said she was a thrower in college. She was about 21.
Throwers are always freaks.
She didn't work out though. She never really lifted weights. They did like throwing workouts, but they just kind of screwed around the weight room. She squatted 500 pounds and pulled 500 pounds.
What the fuck?
Like in span of 2 days.
Wow.
As like weighing about 200 pounds.
My God.
And you're just like,
right.
This is your fifth time in the gym.
You've coached a lot of people, who've hit the platform. You probably worked with some CrossFitters and stuff. Yeah. How have they fared, like just even in local competitions?
I've had some pretty good athletes. I've had a girl do really well. I've had a few CrossFit girls come in and perform well. One thing I like about the CrossFit girls is they come into the sport.
They're hot.
Yeah, they're hot for one, but they come into the sport and they're competitors right off the bat. You have really fit athletes that are just like. The nerves are so different.
Right.
They might be nervous, but it can't be like, if you've been to the CrossFit Games or the regionals, like in the last few years, there's no chance that you're going to get thrown off your game when you go to a local weightlifting competition inside a high school in San Francisco versus standing in front of the stadium full of people, cheering you on to make the same lift. So I think that's a cool aspect of it. I mean, as weightlifting coaches, we're basically being handed this amazing opportunity.
There's some weird things that come from CrossFit too, like a clean ladder and a snatch ladder. Like,
I actually think that's like the coolest thing. I think that's the best.
I think it's amazing.
I think that's the one thing I really like is that the ladder setup is so much fun to watch.
But what a cool thing for like even just training Olympic lifting. Just maybe it's not the most effective thing to do all the time, but even just for fun and mix it up. Say, hey, we're doing a clean ladder
sure.
today.
I mean,
like you know, just to have something different. You know, just to throw
deadlift ladder. Lots of powerlifters would love a deadlift
yeah,
ladder.
yeah, it'd be great.
Yeah, I mean,
Brutal,
though. That would suck. But
Double unders in between, you can't breathe. Fucking
it's a neat like refreshing way to look at it and say, oh, it's a cool way to set it up. You get to see people like kind of you can see where they're progressing. It's much easier
head to head.
Yeah, right. Oh, that guy's 2 bars ahead of the other guy. Like he's gonna go all the way, and then they kind of switch every minute and rotate. It's a really neat way to look at it.
Right.
And then when they miss, they're done, which is always a really cool. It's just the sort of like sudden death. Part of it is really neat. I like that a lot, actually.
Yeah,
it seems to me like Chad Wesley Smith has some big ideas. Where you're moving to, Juggernaut training system. It seems like he wants to try to improve Olympic lifting, try to improve powerlifting, kind of all around. He's got some ideas with some powerlifting meets. He wants to put on some big competitions. I think he has one coming up in April or something.
Yeah,
I can't remember
there's a USAPL meet.
Can't remember the exact date, but I know he's got that coming up, and he's got some big lofty goals. Now with Olympic lifting, I think he's kind of told me that he would like to be able to kind of create an environment where he gets some of the best lifters in the world, and he's able to figure out ways of paying them and having them kind of live close to the gym and that type of thing. Can you talk about that a little bit? I don't know how much he shared with you.
I don't know his exact plans there. The one thing I do know is that I guess I'm not 100% sure the solution to the problem, but from my experience, what I've seen, the corporate team, the idea of like, Muscle Driver had a team, they just went bankrupt.
Right.
Really?
Yeah, it's been on Facebook and stuff. California Strength had a team. They were paying everybody. They didn't do anything.
Right.
It's nothing against any of those people as individuals, or I just don't think
it's an awesome attempt. It's cool.
The model of building a team and paying your lifters
maybe harder than people think.
I don't know if that's really the way to approach it, because you end up in a situation where you're paying somebody to do something. Where's the incentive to where's the next step? What's the next thing? It's just kind of this, it's a great idea, but I think ultimately the building the sport up you're going to have a more fruitful system if you have a system of like supporting the enterprises that support the lifters.
I think that's what Chad's trying to do. He's trying to set something up to where you're basically almost like a spokesman for his company type of deal, and that he'll get work out of you, and then he'll be able to reward you because of that kind of thing.
Yeah, the sponsorship of people and this and that. If you reward, I kind of think if you reward coaches. If coaches have clubs and you reward the club and the coach and you say, hey, when you produce a medalist, you get this much money.
Right.
It's your job to decide who to pay. If you want to pay your athlete, you pay them. If athletes are winning medals for coaches and the coaches aren't paying them, they'll leave and go to someone else. Right? Yeah. If the coach is winning and they have good athletes, they're going to pay their athletes money to stay with them. Right? So if you funnel money into the coach and the organization, it can trickle down to the athletes. The coaches are going to give it to them. And if they don't, they'll go somewhere else, right? So the idea of paying from the top rather than you pay an athlete and where does it go?
I think it's really cool that we're even having a discussion though, because, years ago there was zero money in any of these sports. And I think that, the growth of social media has been a huge factor in that. And then obviously the growth of CrossFit has been a huge factor in that. Like nearly every CrossFitter who, finishes, they don't even have to finish anywhere, that has a big following is getting paid by somebody something. Like it may not be a great amount of money, but they may be getting $250 here, $500 there. They're getting something, which is cool.
Yeah.
Social media created a whole lot of relatively inexpensive spokespeople for all kinds of brands.
Yeah. The ambassador thing, discount code and all that. Yeah. People can capitalize on that a ton.
Right.
That's all good stuff. Anytime there's money being funneled into it, it's going to be, it's
Let's
good.
shift gears a little bit and let's talk about your history with Olympic lifting. When did you start? Or actually, before we get to that, did you have any athletic background as a kid or anything like that? Or
No, I was kind of a fat little kid. I always wanted to be really strong, since I was...
I picture you with a beard as a kid.
Yeah,
is
I had a beard.
Is that right? Is that correct?
Full
Okay.
beard at 9. I was kind of a chubby kid, and I always wanted to be really strong. And when I was 12 years old, I saw the Atlanta Olympics on TV in '96, and I watched Naim Suleimanoglu, this Bulgarian guy, break or win his 3rd consecutive gold medal.
Is that Pocket Hercules?
Yeah, Pocket Hercules.
Fucking Pocket Hercules.
Yeah, which is a pretty amazing. Like, it was cool.
That's some best fucking nickname.
And I saw
Pocket Hercules.
maybe 2 seconds of it. That was all they aired. Like,
Yeah.
oh, here you weightlifting. There
I
it
remember
is.
seeing him. He was a fucking monster.
Yeah, it was awesome.
What did he weigh? He was small, right?
He was like 130. He's 130 pounds, 135 pounds.
What could he squat?
They told me he front squatted 507. Apparently he cleaned like 445.
Oh my God.
And when you see a guy that small
Yeah.
with the bar, like your hands, like the bar looks like in his hands.
Yeah.
Like
Right.
Cleaning 440 pounds at that size.
Yeah,
And you
how's
see
he
a
able
kid-
to even fucking hold on to the bar?
I don't
much
even
less-
know. I mean, it's just disturbing.
So that got you fired up.
So then I saw that and I was like, that's what I'm going to do. And, I basically started like, working out with like the old sand weights and shit in
awesome.
the garage. And the same thing I think most people start with.
Right.
And,
The Sears
you know,
ones, or
yeah, that's right.
Was your family or parents supportive of anything?
They really didn't notice or care much, what was going on.
Whatever, you dork.
I got a little older. I got to high school or middle school and like started using like the weight room. They had like a weight room in there, and
Right.
I remember doing a lot of like leg presses and stuff like
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
just because it was.
Yeah.
That's what I thought you're supposed
Well,
to
you
do.
could put a lot of weight on it, and,
Yeah.
and kids get excited. They're like,
Yeah.
"Oh man, I got 4 plates on each side."
Yeah. In high school, I leg pressed 8,000 pounds. So it's just,
Still a record, by the way.
it's still on. It's a squat. So
Silent Mike has 24-hour fitness bench press world records to his name.
how do you get those?
I don't know.
You got to find that out. And
It's
go
only
take 'em.
315, so someone could probably take it, but I don't know. I don't know how he made it official, but
Does he have like a
that's what he,
plaque?
that's what he claimed.
Does he have
I
an
don't know.
actual like record certificate?
We did a seminar, and that's what he said.
Holy
that's
shit.
amazing.
That's amazing. That he would even acknowledge that. It's-
Yeah, or
Well, he
say it
said
out
he's
loud.
It's just
or
desperate. It's
in front of
very-
people. Or,
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he kind of
It's the
referenced
first-
it as
yeah.
being pathetic, but
The first thing he says when I met him, he's like, "I've Silent Mike got a world record 24-hour fitness bench press." You might have heard him, pretty. You may have seen my name on the wall at 24-hour fitness.
exactly.
Sandusky, Ohio.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Oh my God, that's great.
So,
Yeah,
anyways,
it's probably it's probably a world record only in that particular
that gym.
the Sandusky, Ohio world record.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So, I started training a little more, actually lifting and stuff. And then I got to high school, and the coach there, I was lucky enough that they had like bumpers and the bigger, faster, stronger program.
Right.
Not the other bigger,
Not
faster,
the
stronger.
bigger, not,
Not the bigger, stronger,
not
faster.
the bigger, stronger, faster program, but the bigger, faster, stronger.
But they had, they had the equipment, and they kind of taught me
I
how.
remember reading that like they had like a magazine. Like
Yeah, they
I
used to,
remember,
yeah.
I remember looking at that and like it would show some kid that was like 17, doing a clean and jerk with like 365 or something crazy. I was like, what? Where are these people? This is
There's
amazing.
I learned I taught myself how to snatch I watched a couple of videos because back then,
that's porn.
that was prior to YouTube. I watched.
That old VHS fucking tracking
Did
system.
you see the Instagram? I
Yeah,
posted?
yeah,
VHS?
yeah. We'll get into that later. He's got a side business with his VHS.
That's actually like those videos are like 5 years old.
That's great.
Oh,
The
really?
VHS that are like 5 or 6 years old. Yeah,
That's awesome.
Joanne got them from a seminar that she went to. Like,
Oh my God.
anyways, there was a maybe a couple videos I saw, and then there was a picture. The BFS like three pictures of a guy. One with him at the bar set up like a deadlift, like he's gonna clean it. One where the bar's at his hip, like he stood up, and then one where he's caught it. And that was like the instructions. Like, here you go. That's how you
Do
clean.
that.
That's what you do.
How hard could it be?
I mean,
He
it's only
picked it up off the ground and brought it to his shoulders.
It's only 3 steps. So I taught myself how to snatch, just kind of watching, and I could snatch like my body weight, first couple of days, with sneakers on. It wasn't like a super challenging thing to figure out.
Yeah.
I wasn't great at it, and I think that was probably ultimately what led to me having bad technique later. But I just did that, and then I started just squatting every single day. And that was just, that's what, I did snatch and clean and jerk and squat every day. And that was just like, oh, it makes sense. I'll just do them.
Did you get a program from someone or just started just doing it kind of?
I just kind of pieced it together. I mean, I think I'd probably read something like that.
Was it progressive at all? Was there
no,
more
there
weight?
there was zero science.
No
or,
programming to it.
There
at
was
all,
nothing. It was just like, I remember going in one day.
Did you have bumper plates and stuff?
Yeah, we had bumpers.
Okay,
yeah.
I was going to say maybe some of that stuff wasn't as readily available as it
Yeah,
is today.
that's what I was lucky. I mean, that was in Montana, so I.
What the fuck are you doing in Montana?
Yeah,
It's fucking cold there.
I know.
Jesus Christ.
I've had my full of snow for the rest of my life.
Dude, I love Montana because when it says airport, like there's a sign for the airport's literally right there.
Yeah. Yeah. You can
Yeah.
like walk
Parking.
around the building and
You
get onto
can-
the tarmac.
You can fucking leave your
fence.
car running outside the airport while you go and pick somebody up inside.
Yeah. Well, it's
unbelievable.
cold. Oh, that's you can. Yeah. That's
It's
pretty
amazing.
amazing. But like a few years ago, I was off topic, but in Montana, like I think right when I first got my learner's permit, it would have been legal for me to drive 120 miles an hour
While drinking a beer.
I was too young, but you could theoretically have been outside of county lines, have an open beer container in one hand, a loaded pistol in the other, going 120, and get pulled over and not be in violation of any laws.
Snorting cocaine off
But
of the
just as long as you're doing all three of those things. At the
Yeah, you
same
had to
time.
do all three in order for it to be allowed.
It's a big hunting state too.
Yeah.
See fucking guns and pickup trucks fucking everywhere.
Yeah. But it was, I don't remember where it was.
That's just where you grew up.
That's where I grew up, yeah.
So you
Montana.
were
Oh yeah, so
no programming.
there's
you
no
were just-
program,
just-
and I remember one day going to the gym and like I was gonna front squat, and I think my front squat was probably about maybe 350 at the time, and I went in and I did like a maybe 285 or 275, and I hit the bottom. I just couldn't move. I was just fucked up. I was so fucking destroyed and broken, and I was just like, I remember thinking, because I remember this to this day, it was just like confusing. Like, why did that happen?
Right.
That's weird. Like, it's not supposed. Like, I should just be able to do exactly what I did yesterday.
Right.
I ended up breaking the high school squat record with a front squat.
A silent mic
With a
record.
front squat.
squatted
Billings, Montana.
Yeah. So silent mic, them calling you out. It's you've been served.
Exactly.
What was the number then?
It was 200 kilos. I did 440, and I weighed probably 180.
That's crazy.
Jeez.
Yeah. And then the other kid did 400 or did 440 as a back squat. But
Right.
he was a little heavier. He was about 200 pounds.
What a
You know,
bitch. Probably
I know.
wore a belt.
I know.
Faggot.
If I had straps. He had straps, I'm sure.
Ace bandages.
So
And
yeah.
then when did you start trying to figure out competing and stuff?
Well, then I was midway through high school. I met my first coach was Steve Goff, and the funny story is he was
How do I know that name? He's famous, isn't he? Isn't he somebody? No.
he's famous in his
In Montana?
in his world. He was actually a really good
Name sounds familiar though.
He's a great coach. He was there's a golf street in San Francisco. He was a cop in San Francisco for 30 years.
Oh.
I know he was in Vietnam. I don't know if he did one or two tours, but he was he was like a Burgess Meredith from Rocky.
Yeah, he's a bad motherfucker.
But yeah, he's total badass.
Women weak in legs.
Literally, those words have come out of his mouth.
That's great.
You
Oh, it's
know.
true.
Yeah, totally that guy. So he was really instrumental in teaching me how to do the lifts a little better and train more. And he was insane. I mean, he would push me so hard. So I started training with him. My best front squat. I remember the first day I met him, I made a PR front squat of 365, and at the bottom of the squat, I broke my first rib. And I stood up and made it, and I couldn't breathe. I was like, oh, this feels really weird. So I was like, it was weird because when I made it, he had this look when I was like, oh, I think I hurt myself, of disgust, oh, you're just weak, you're just a pussy. What I expected, right? Of course.
Yeah, why'd you even say that? Why'd you even tell me?
So then I didn't see him
Made me
again for
weaker.
2 weeks, and we had a meet. They were going to have a competition at the university, so I went and actually, there's another guy in there, Justin Braun.
Oh yeah.
You know Justin.
Yeah, yeah. It was my brother's roommate.
Yeah.
My
So-
brother's roommate at USC.
Justin actually.
Coinky-dink.
Justin's
From
actually the
Montana.
guy that kind of got me into it because I ended up calling the university to find
There
a
you
club.
go.
There was Braun. He was there. He was a super smart guy, super
Yeah.
talented
He was
guy.
a thrower, I think,
Yeah.
for USC, right?
Yeah. But anyways, he he looked disgusted that I missed or I made this and was hurt and whatever. And so 2 weeks later, I didn't talk to him. 2 weeks later,
He's grumpy.
I come, yeah, at the competition.
grumpy.
I show up to competition. And he comes out of the bathroom. He's like, oh, "You're still lifting? You didn't quit?" And I was like, "Yeah, yeah." I took a couple of days off, and it healed and whatever. And then, you know, he's like, well, I want to take you under my wing. And like, started coaching me. I had to drive like an hour, you know, both an hour to get to him and then an hour to come back. But in 6 weeks from that 365 front squat, in 6 weeks, I front squatted 485.
Damn.
And that's how hard he pushed. I mean, it was just like as hard as just push. All my lifts went up. Everything was going great.
You're probably training with a couple other people, right?
No, it was me and him.
Oh, that's it.
It was completely alone.
Just
him
yelling at you.
Just him yelling. That was too much. It was just too much. Like that's the whole like coaching. It was just the magnification on somebody was just too intense.
Yeah.
You need to have an environment where
can I do anything right? Fucking A, man. Leave me the fuck
he
alone.
even knew that too. You know, he had a, you know, he always was trying to get people to come out there, and you know, he was such an awesome guy. He had so many like just ridiculous just shit that this guy would do. It was just incredible. But he had this kid come up from Texas, and this kid was probably like 340 when he got there.
Oh shit.
And golf just, you know, I mean, the day one he's in there, tell him, hey, go do some sit-ups, weighted sit-ups on that sit-up board. And he's doing like kind of like a couple, and he's like, "Come on, you fat Texas pussy," and like just like ripping into him. And you know, like 6 months later, the kid weighs like 220.
Wow.
What?
Yeah, I mean, he was just like on you every day. Yeah, I mean, just driving.
Yeah, if you're gonna do it, he's gonna make you go crazy.
The most passionate, high energy person just I've ever met. And you know, so he kind of got me into that and taught me how to train. I trained with him for a while. Then eventually, you know, he trained, and there's this Bulgarian came out here, you know, and Dave at Cal Strength brought this, you know, Abajev out here, and there was a program going on, and I contacted him and
You're
came
still
out
in Montana, and then you came out
Then
here.
I moved out to California to train there. And
you moved from Montana to California just to train for Olympic.
Yeah, just to train. The deal was it was $1,000 a month, so you had to pay $1,000 to do it.
Right.
And so I didn't have any money. I had I was working like a day job.
Whose dick do I got to suck around here to learn how to do a snatch?
Yeah, I mean, I would have, but you know. So there was you had to pay $1,000. So I was like, well, okay. I had a friend who was like, I have a job where I'm gonna renovate this guy's basement, and he had to dig out the whole it was like a not quite a crawl space, but
there's not really basements in California necessarily. Yeah.
Well, this was in Montana.
So
it was like, you know, the ceiling I think was maybe 6 feet tall. We had to dig it out to like 7 or 8, and we did it with like hand shovels and 5-gallon buckets for 3 or 4 weeks, maybe a month,
building up that grip strength and lower back.
So I would work there for 10 hours a day, and then at night, right after that, I'd go to like 24-hour fitness and squat. And I maybe did the Olympic lifts a little bit for that month before. You know, but I made enough money to you know, train there for a few months, and I was like
20 at this time.
Yeah, maybe 22, something like that. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna go out there and you know, do this, and I'll pay for 3 months and learn whatever I can, and it's worth it. And I was expecting fully to like fly back with zero money in my pocket and be done with the experience.
Right.
But instead, you know, apparently I was one of like 3 people in the world that asked to actually do it. So no one really even applied.
Everyone's like, fuck that.
Yeah, no one else. Yeah, everyone was like, fuck this.
Pay me to do that shit.
So, you know, I did all that, and you know, eventually, like, they didn't, you know, Dave didn't make me pay or anything, so I could stay out there a lot longer. And that was awesome. It was a great experience, you know, living in the house with them and just learning all that stuff. But that was kind of the, you know, nearing the end, I think, of that stretch of training like that, because I wasn't getting a lot better. I was destroyed. Everything was getting worse. Like, things were
talk
hurting
about some of
more
those
and more.
workouts. I heard you talk about, you know, the workouts your coach would put you through.
Well, golf would put me through like just ridiculous. I mean, just insane 7-8 hours a day. I mean, I'd drive there in the morning at 8 o'clock.
What does that entail when you work out for 7 or 8 hours?
We would
a day?
do the 8-hour arm workout 6 days
An
a
inch
week.
in one day. Fuck yeah, I've done it before. I've done it twice actually.
Have you?
Yeah, that's why my arms are so big.
I mean, I can get that from you after this.
Yeah, sure.
We would go in and snatch to max, or we'd front squat to maximum, then we'd snatch to maximum, then we'd take like a 30-minute break, then we'd front squat up to maximum again, then we'd take a break, then we'd clean and jerk to maximum. Like,
Jesus.
every exercise was maximum. Just work up to a maximum single and do that, and then rest, and then
Is
do
that
it
how you
again.
got the name Max?
Yeah. Yeah, my name was John before that.
Yeah.
But
Max. Like, all right,
I'm just gonna change it so it's easy.
yeah, exactly.
You know, there was the Fargo thing where the guy changed his name to the license plate, so it's a custom plate.
All right.
It's like that.
Exactly.
But you know, I did train like that. You know, 3 days a week was like that. The other 3 days was a little bit different, but basically the same thing. Just maximum weights every time, every workout, every exercise. Maybe some exercises were less than that, but maybe like if your best, you know, snatch is, you know, 300 pounds, you might work up to like 280.
Right.
But essentially just the heaviest things.
Did you get really fucking sore from these workouts, or you get
after a
used to
while?
them?
I think after a while you become so there's so little adaptation taking place. You're so accommodated to it that you don't ever. It's just like every day is the same thing. You feel worse when you wouldn't do it. You'd feel
Right. way
way worse when you wouldn't train on a day. A day off was just miserable. Just everything hurt, and you end up, you know, just fucked up. I mean, my shoulders were destroyed.
Yeah,
I
you know,
needed surgeries.
I've always, you know, people talk about the central nervous system and shit like that. It's always kind of bugged me a little bit because it's like this is what we do.
Yeah.
And like if you're a basketball player, you don't play basketball one day and then be like, oh, I need 3 days off or I need a deload. I mean, I realize that the intensity at which you're playing basketball at basketball practice is much different than the game itself. But this is what we do. You should be prepared to do it. You shouldn't get all that sore from it.
Yeah.
Occasionally, you're going to kill yourself here and there and get really fucked up and sore and maybe even injured. But you should be like ready to be able to do it on a daily basis.
Yeah.
You know.
You know, I think Steve Goff came from that mentality. He came from Vietnam, so he was like, I mean, he was like, you're fucking sore and tired, like,
Yeah.
you're in a fucking war, like you're trying to win, to win, so nothing else matters.
No rest or
Abajev-
you get killed.
Yeah, Abajev was like that too. It was just like, this is, you know, you don't go into the gym to feel good. You're giving away your health. You're going in there to give away your health so that you can win, because that's what you want to do. That's what's important.
Yeah.
You're trying to defeat other countries. You don't think they're training just as hard.
This is war, son.
Yeah, I mean, it was you know, ridiculous. It was awesome. I'm glad I did all those things. I'm glad I had all those experiences, because as much
You
as
sometimes laugh when somebody says, "Oh, Max, I'm fucking really sore." You're like, "Come on, dude."
Yeah, I mean, there's
seriously, like you're a fucking pussy.
there's a lot of, you know, I don't with the athletes I have, because they're all amazing. No, your invoices are coming. No, just because, you know, you don't know what someone else's situation is.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, as much as I would love to just be like, oh yeah, don't be a
You're
pussy.
trying to groom them, and
You have
maybe
no
you're-
idea. I don't
maybe
know
you're
if, you
a little
know,
bit more aware that they have
They're people,
external
right?
things. They have life going on.
Yeah.
Their life is happening, and they're also lifting weights.
Yeah.
They're doing it for fun. They're doing it to enjoy it, and I want to show them what the sport of weightlifting and powerlifting can be, and as a positive thing, as a thing that's like, hey, come in, you'll get better at this, you'll learn it, you'll understand what really hard work is, you'll understand, you know, the process of going from doing nothing in front of a computer all day to, you know, being somewhat of an athlete. No one, you know, very few people walk into the gym with the expectation that they're going to become fantastic.
Right.
They walk into the gym expecting to learn something and enjoy it and develop something physically and mentally out of it.
I think that one aspect of strength is pain tolerance.
Yeah. Oh,
And so that's why some people are stronger, because
very much.
they don't have the same pain
Very much.
reception as everybody else does.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, when I hurt my wrist really severely, and I dislocated the lunate bone in the wrist, and coming from Goff's, you know, hard charging kind of mentality, after about 6 weeks, or maybe like 2 months of it being dislocated, I started training on it, and I snatched like 286 pounds with the bone actually out of the socket. And it was just pain, but it was just like, well, it's, you know, whatever, it's just pain. Later I realized that was like actually probably going to damage it more, and that's kind of how I realized something was much more severe. I didn't know it was
wasn't
dislocated.
getting better.
Yeah.
That's when you're like, you know what, I better switch to a less aggressive sport, and you jumped into powerlifting.
Yeah, so I got into powerlifting. Yeah, and then that's when I got hurt, so I couldn't do it anymore. And so, you know, Jesse Burdick was like the
Who?
he was
Jesse
I'm
Burdick,
so
Megamind?
I'm so glad I met him, because when I really had no idea what I was going to do. I mean, I went from like training every single day for 10 years to what am I do now? And I literally sat on the couch drinking every night until I was, you know, would fall asleep. I mean, it was just, or pass out. Like
What's wrong with that?
I was miserable.
Sounds fucking great. Yeah.
Misha said the same thing. Misha came up and talked to me at the seminar, and he knew who I was, and he said hi to me, and we started talking. He asked me about my hand, and he asked me, he said, you knew you were a weightlifter and you got hurt, and I was telling him like, when I got hurt, everything was over. He said the same thing. He said when weightlifting was done for him, he knew the Olympics was gone. He just sat and just drank himself to sleep every day.
Yeah.
I mean, just wanted
Some
to
vodka.
die. But then he said the story was the same thing. He was doing that, and then someone kind of got him into strongman, right? Or he saw strongman, or started. He found something new and re-inspired himself
There's
to do
a sport where you can drink and be fat.
Right. So yeah,
We got a perfect sport for you.
I was depressed and wanted to kill myself, and so powerlifting, right? But I knew there was a competition happening in Pleasanton. I contacted them. I went down there to go sign up for it. I was just going to squat, and squat and bench press and whatever, and just do it for fun. And I walked in, and Jesse was the only guy in the gym. And he's like, "Hey, come over here. I'll show you. If you want to try something, I'll train you a little bit if you want to do the meet." And I was like, "Yeah, sure." And he pulled out a slingshot, and we used that, and that was kind of neat. And I was like, "Oh, that's great. You can just cheat your way through the sport, so no problem."
Yeah.
Where's my Olympic lifting slingshot?
Yeah, and started showing you bands and chains and box squats and all kinds of different stuff.
I trained with him a bunch, and that was awesome. Like that, I started doing it, and it was great, and it was like a really awesome way to kind of find some, something out of the sort of.
Jesse's a perfect person
career
for that kind of thing too.
He's a fixer.
Yeah.
It really drives him nuts when there's something that could be fixed.
No.
And he's like, no, we'll do this and we'll try this.
Yeah.
Did you try this? And,
Yeah.
That's just who he is.
Super smart guy. It was awesome. And so
What are some of your numbers? Best numbers in the meet?
My squat was 738 at 220, and I benched like 352, and then pulled 705, all at 220.
Did you do anything at 198?
I never went down to 98.
Oh.
But I was going to, and then
Squatted over 700 a couple times.
Yeah,
a handful of times.
Most times, yeah. I mean, it's half a dozen, 7-8 times. But the thing is, I was starting to train and get more into it, and then we opened the gym and everything, and that's when it was kind of like 90%.
What was the biggest difference between because I noticed, it took you a while to adjust to a powerlifting squat. For a long time you had a basic Olympic lifting style squat where you would just squat as low as you could possibly go, rebound out of the bottom and come up, like you're on fire. Yeah. And then, when you started powerlifting, you still kind of stuck to that for a little while until the weights started to get a little heavier.
So this is how I teach anyone in powerlifting in my gym. But the biggest mistakes I made was doing a low bar squat and putting the bar lower and changing the mechanics the way I squatted. And I moved it lower, and I started sitting way back, and I would just do this kind of weird thing that was unnatural, and I ended up tearing my hamstring and adductor a bunch of times. Later, as I started to kind of look at it, and
by the way, anybody
people
out there listening, if you're going to try anything new, you have to do it with light weights, and it could take a really long time to adapt. So, if you're going to do something like that because you saw Dan Green squat low bar or somebody else, take your time with it. Only do it as assistance work for a while until it starts to feel a little better.
Yeah, and I did that, and I really didn't know how to train for powerlifting. I assumed it was very different. And so I started doing a lot of weird stuff, when I was kind of on my own after with Jesse, where, I started doing like a bunch of just odd programs and, just trying.
Me and Jesse had a lot of conversations about your weirdness too. We're like, what the fuck's he doing? Jesse's like, I don't know, man.
Yeah, just dumb shit. But anyways, I got hurt, and so what I did, I changed everything, and I went back to the way I squatted before. I went high bar, and I squatted low. And then the difference was, instead of moving the bar down and changing my position, I just moved the bar down off my traps and then did exactly the same things. And my squat started to become much, much better and much more powerful. I wouldn't get that weird slowness in the bottom.
So you maybe lowered the bar just a tiny bit?
Yeah, I would. And so what I do now with people is, people come to the gym, if they want to do powerlifting, everybody squats high bar. And then as they get closer to the competition, they lower the bar an inch or two, a couple inches.
Right.
Well, I trained with Boris Shako.
There's a few people that just to point out, there's some people that don't really have a choice on where they carry the bar. If you're new, try not to really worry about it too much.
Yeah.
Stick the bar in a comfortable spot that doesn't hurt.
Yeah. So I trained with Shaco, and his program worked really well when I just had the exact same technique for every, it was very much about practicing the same thing. So I wouldn't change
You're
the
an
position of the
expert
bar.
bench presser, according to Boris.
Right. Yeah, he said I was perfect on all three.
Yeah, it worked out great.
I
was
just
embarrassed.
don't
And then I
put-
went to bench. He's like, no.
Yeah. Yeah.
What
You're
the
terrible.
fuck?
So look at Max there.
Yeah,
See,
fuck all you guys.
look past the 25 pounds on the bar and tell me that that's not perfect. No, but his system is like is very much methodical. You repeat the same technique every time. I kind of gravitated more with the coaching to the lifters I have now to I really liked a lot
That
of
seminar was fucking awesome.
It was a really
If you ever
incredible,
get
yeah.
a chance to go see
Yeah.
Boris Shaco and
money well
Mikhail
spent.
Kokulev, it's fucking worth it. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's fantastic. But I moved closer to more like what Ed Cohen did. I bought the DVD off your site years ago, and I just watched it, and it was simple and it made a lot of sense. And using that kind of straightforward kind of approach that he had, that's how I coached a lot more people. I wanted to try it, and to this day, we had tremendous success.
Yeah.
Yesterday, I had a girl 165 squat 528 with
Wow.
sleeves,
So many guys
sleeves
just-
and a belt.
So many guys just died on the
Yeah.
internet right
Yeah.
now.
Wow.
And she's literally done the exact same training program every training cycle
Right.
for about 7, maybe 10 training cycles.
Yeah, Ed
from
talks
day
about
one
that.
to this day, and just progress.
Ed talks about that a lot, and the other thing he'll mention too is nothing drastic would change.
Yeah.
But as he was going through a training cycle, or let's say he competed and maybe didn't do as well as he wanted, he would just make some notes on some different things
Yeah.
he wanted to try. Somebody would say, "Hey, you ever tried doing this?" And he would say, "Oh shit, I never did try."
Yeah.
And he'd go back and he'd put that in his programming. When the meet was far away, and he would test things out and kind of play with some different things.
Yeah.
But for the most part, it was pretty much the same exact workout for 20 years.
I think that's one of the biggest things. I was talking to a bunch of people about this before, but that's one of the biggest mistakes that beginners make is changing stuff too much. Because what I've noticed is when Christy would do those those training cycles, one of them was effective, but another one back to back that was basically the
Christy
same.
Hawkins?
Yeah. Back to back was more effective than just one, and then the third was more effective. Right? They built on each other because if you stay healthy and you just transition from one to the next, in a healthy way where you're not super tired,
Right.
you end up kind of compounding the effects of them. I had a guy come in and he was, he went from a 360 bench to almost 450 in 8 months. The same. This guy's a cop. He just works 40, 50 hours a week. The same, just simple programs. In weightlifting, it's the same too. I think you'll find exercises that are gonna be exercises you use your whole career. If you do a snatch with a pause at your knee, and that's what helps you, that's probably gonna be in your program as a standard movement on a very regular basis. People, I think, sometimes get stuck in this idea that I did that, I got to totally change everything, rather than saying, it didn't work well, maybe I need to build up my lats more, my quads more, so I'll just add a little bit more. I was talking to Chad about this too. He was saying the biggest variation between his training program and maybe a total beginner, novice, 130-pound girl, might only be about 20% different. Right. For the most part, the programs are very similar, and you repeat the programs over and over. Shaco's the same. He said, if the program works, we'll repeat the same. We'll repeat basically the same program
Until
again.
it stops working.
Yeah, until it completely stops working. You're not getting any progress. But that's probably almost probably never happened for a lot of good lifters, right?
Yeah, Ed Cohen, in every single deadlift session for many years, he would do a deadlift followed by a stiff leg deadlift, followed by bent over rows.
Yeah.
Every single workout for I don't know how many years.
Decades, right?
But the point is that if you continue to work on some of those other movements, the stiff leg deadlift, now he goes from, somebody who haphazardly throws in stiff leg deadlifts,
Sure.
Who maybe, let's say, deadlifts around 600 pounds. They might use 275, 315 and do 3 sets of 10 with that. But where Ed was really pushing those numbers, Ed was doing 6, sometimes 7 plates for stiff leg deadlifts for sets of 3 or sets of 5. And I think that's the point is to not only utilize those exercises for a long time, but really work on building on them.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah, that's a big thing too, I think, is people get they don't associate simple things like that. Like, I mean, stiff leg deadlifts are probably one of the best exercises in the world. I mean,
Right.
Like almost nobody I can think of isn't going to benefit from that.
Yeah, I mean, it's simulating you possibly getting out of position in a real deadlift. Your hips end up high, and it's going to strengthen the shit out of your lower back.
I mean, your hamstrings and lower back are going to get so strong from that that it's going to transfer to your deadlift, and it's going to transfer at some point to, I mean, it's just the overall strength you build is great.
Do you think it's harder to get stronger at Olympic lifting just kind of due to the dynamics of it? I mean, I know percentage-wise, the weights are quite different.
That was one of the things I think, like going back to Louie's book, that I think he maybe misses a little, which is a lot of coaches I think miss it, and even myself at the point in time, is that Olympic lifting is not squat this much, Olympic lift that much, deadlift this much, Olympic lift that much. The correlation is not a perfect. If you squat,
there's no algebra that gives
if you squat 300 kilos, does not equal anything in the clean and jerk. You have to be an excellent.
And I'd say
clean and jerk.
powerlifting can end up that way sometimes.
Sure.
You have somebody who hammers, front squats.
Sure.
It's like, oh, that's cool that your front squat's going up, but your regular squat's the same.
Yeah, or if your quads are weak, doing more good mornings isn't going to change that, right? So I think that's one of those, like, weightlifting, there is a point where strength is not going to bring your numbers up. Getting stronger isn't going to necessarily bring your numbers up. It doesn't mean that learning and still teaching yourself to fight with heavy weights is a bad thing. So, like I was talking to John Bros a long time ago about, Pat Mendez when he squatted 800. And I was talking to him about, like, are you going to keep pushing it? And he said, yeah, because he needs to learn to fight with weights still. He's gonna. It's not about the number. It's about fighting with a heavy bar. It's about fighting with 380 kilos, then 400
so he goes
kilos.
To come up out of the clean, even if his legs slam in and he gets rounded, he can still stand up with it.
And I mean, the method, the idea there is that you're still probably going to lift heavy weights in the squat. It doesn't mean that you're necessarily trying to become the best squatter in the world, because that doesn't mean you're going to be a great weightlifter. So I think Louie's kind of still in the book. He was a little bit like talking about. There's a lot of emphasis on that when it's like there's so many other things that are very important that you can't assume that weightlifting is as simple as it is. Like, oh, this comes up, that comes up. Because if it was that easy, people with big squats would just be great weightlifters, right?
Right. That's true. Do you think it's important for an Olympic lifter to be good at both, the style of squat that they do, to be able to, I guess they're trying to mimic the way that they catch the weights and things like that. But should they also be good? Like, a lot of times it's like a reckless squat. It's a dive bomb squat. Do you think they should also be efficient at a more controlled squat, and also maybe even being able to have the ability to reverse the weights without bouncing off their own body?
I don't teach people to squat like that, so I don't know. I can't say it. I mean, I teach people to squat. You want a really methodical squat. You want to sit down and then stand back up. You don't want to fall. If you fall, then you lose position and you lose tightness, and you definitely don't develop a leg strength.
Right.
As well as you could if you squat a little slower, a little more methodically. Squatting really fast like that, I mean, there's people that squat through a couple different ways, and it just doesn't transfer anyways. I will say that people that generally squat really, really big weights are if they're more wild, if it's more like the squat is just something that they are really adept at, and they can just bounce halfway up and recover the last part, may not be that may not transfer well to weightlifting, right? Whereas someone who squats really methodically and is developing a lot of power with their legs when they squat, when they push, is probably going to get more out of it.
Right.
It's
So
also,
what about for yourself? When the transition to powerlifting, did you squat a little higher eventually?
So later,
cut the squats a little bit, or
I did a lot of squats with wraps. I put wraps on because I didn't do when I weightlifted. I didn't wear a belt or anything, and when I got into powerlifting,
Tough guy.
You could wear wraps, and I was like, well, I got kind of a small dick, so I got to let everybody got to compensate somewhere. So I was like, well, if you can do it, I'll try it. And back then, no one was. I went to that meet and I squatted 700, and there was like 20 multiply guys.
Right.
Yeah.
So I was the first. So it was not as. It just wasn't as common. Raw lifting wasn't there.
Right.
now I would get fucking destroyed in the IPF with Bryce Lewis and Wayne Norton, you know.
Yeah, some mutants.
You know, with sleeves. But it was like I wanted to try it and see, and I enjoyed it. You know, it was fun. So the wraps kind of stopped me a little higher, and I liked the tightness. That was enjoyable to like feel like there's a little bit of a rebound, you know. And it was fun. That's why I put it on.
It's like I have bread, and before I only had bread, but now there's butter.
Yeah, exactly. So I was fat. That's what you're saying, right?
Exactly what
That was an analogy for you being fat and gross, I think.
Yeah, getting at.
Yeah. So just kind of leave us with, something, the story of you moving to California and you having to pay $1,000 a month, I find pretty intriguing. So maybe kind of walk us through that a little bit. Like, what was an average day like for you? Were you really struggling with money because you had to pay all the money to the gym? And like, what were you living? Were you living out of a car? Did you have an apartment?
Well, so when I got there, he put everyone in a house.
Okay.
So we were living with the team. The lifters and the coach all lived together, and that was actually the way the coach wanted it. He wanted to have total control and be able to watch everybody when they were doing anything. No one would drink and screw around, and you had to be in bed at 11. You had to take a nap in the middle of the day.
Did you guys still fuck around or not really?
Yeah, I mean,
a little bit,
always
yeah.
doing dumb shit and drinking at night and whatever. Apparently one time he walked in on one of the kids when he was like, you know, on the back then they used Skype, right? So she's like, his girlfriend's naked on the other line.
Nice.
He was the really short, quiet little guy, and so he would like walked up behind him and he was just rubbing one out. And I guess he didn't notice him there for a second or two until he turned around and realized, like, holy shit, this like 80-year-old Bulgarian insane communist type guy is just like scoping this out.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, so we would live there, and it was, you know,
everybody wake up at the same time, everybody eat at the same time.
Basically, yeah, everyone ate as a team and trained as a team and did stuff on a rigid schedule.
Shower together, stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, the first time when I walked in, Martine, my friend who was, he was kind of the he spoke English better than everybody else. I walked in. I was supposed to use his shower because I was sleeping in. I think I was sleeping in like a dining room. Mm-hmm. And so he says to me when I walk in, he's like, "You can use the shower, just don't jerk off in there." Also,
thank you very much.
He knows you.
Yeah. I mean, I did anyways, but
of course, yeah, that'd be the first thing you need to do.
That's what I did that before I used the shower.
Exactly.
Despite him,
you got to jerk off somewhere.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Right. And I mean, the computer's taken upstairs.
Right.
So.
Yeah. Well, and you're in the house with all those hot guys. You must have been very frisky.
When I walked in, they told me to. Apparently there's a bunch of shit that went on. They told me this kid's name, the Bulgarian guy's name. The first thing I walk in, I meet Abajev. I walk in, this kid James Moser comes up to me. We talk, and he's like, "Go introduce yourself to Martine." His name wasn't Martine. He's like, his name's Padal, which means like faggot. So I'm like, okay, sure. Hi, Padal. And he's just like, he gets so fucking angry. And I'm like, shit, what'd I do, And he obviously knew it was James. He started yelling at James. But then, like, I guess later they told Abajev I was gay, and he was just like, didn't want to be near me for a couple of days. Then I think later he realized I wasn't, it's just like shit like that. Where you can imagine. I mean, you've been in those places where people are they just like to fuck with you. They told him the cook was gay too, and he wouldn't eat anything. I'm
not eating this gay food.
He wouldn't touch the food or anything. And then
it's fucking gay steak. I'm not eating that shit.
Yeah, I mean, just amazing shit. There was a guy.
That's funny.
A guy that came there once that was the scientist. He was a scientist from Bulgaria. And this guy was dressed in he had little slip-on shoes, socks that looked like pantyhose. Short cargo shorts and a cargo vest.
I like it.
And he wore the same thing all the time. And he came up to me and he had this clear plastic cup that had black stuff in it. And you think it's coffee. He's like, "This is the best drink." And what is it? It's warm Coke and instant coffee mixed together.
God.
And it was like sludge. And he's sipping on this all day, smoking like a chimney.
He must have smelled wonderful, I bet.
When he leaves, after 2 weeks, he comes to me. I'm in the living room. He comes to me. He's like, "I have a gift for you before I leave." I'm like, "Oh, cool. What's that?" And he hands me this bottle, of I want to say like inositol or whatever, like, you know, some multivitamin vitamin type stuff. And he hands it me, here you go. This is for you. And I look at it, I'm like, this came out of our fucking cupboard. I've seen this bottle.
Great.
This bottle
awesome.
is ours.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
I just looked at him like, the fuck? He tells me, he's telling us like he's like a special forces guy. And I'm friends with him on Facebook now. Yeah. I found him, and he posted a picture of his like special forces certificate.
Jesus Christ.
like a 24-hour world record bench press certificate. You order away for it. Has like the fucking special forces, you know.
Back of Rolling Stone.
Oh, it was incredible. But yeah, I mean, he was just crazy shit like that. I mean, it was the best, you know, some of the best times of my life. I mean, just those things.
That must have been fun.
Yeah, all those times, like when you're in a group of people, you got 10 different people in there that all have different personalities that are all definitely weird and off, and, you know, and everyone thinks they're the most normal person there, but they're all just fucking nuts because everyone's
like,
crazy.
oh, so-and-so's weird. Meanwhile, you're being weird. And
he was watching me while I was jerking off in the shower, you know?
So is this new move feel a little bit like that? You're going into a situation?
No, because it's going to be different. I mean, you know, I've told Chad that no, he's not allowed to watch me play with myself. So
okay,
that's a definite.
That
no.
sucks.
Yeah,
for him anyway.
Yeah. But no, I mean it's different. I mean, I'm a lot more, you know, a lot older than I was then. I'm not there to, you know, I'm not going down as like a athlete to be this and that. It's much more like it feels a lot more, you know, professional, and you know that's the intent, right? Is to try and build something now. There's a lot more motivation now at this age. I'm sure you guys have been through that point where you're interested in really building something and putting energy into something that's going to be lasting. Not so much that you're like, oh, you know, I'm going to go lift weights today and I don't care how much, you know, money I have in the bank and this and that. You want to actually like build some kind of real thing and help people and make a significant impact on the sport and on, you know, life and that kind of stuff. So
where can people find you at?
They can find me online at you know, on my Facebook at Max Aita, and then Max's Gym on Instagram, and Max Aita on Instagram, and then I'm sure we'll establish some Juggernaut headquarters Instagrams and whatnot. If they want to do like remote coaching, they can email me. You guys can maybe put the link up.
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, you can email if you want remote coaching. Yeah.
All right, guys, that's Max Aita, the infamous Max Aita who beat up that squat rack so viciously back in the day. Squatted over 700 pounds, some awesome accolades in weightlifting as well. An awesome fucking weightlifting coach. We're going to have him coach up some people. Today he's actually going to coach me up in some squats, which will be interesting because I am fucking retarded at squats, but I could use some help. So I figured why I have him here, might as well hit him up. He's going to be down in Orange County. So anybody who's in the Orange County area, basically from here on out, needs to go check out Juggernaut's gym. Any idea where it is?
It's in Laguna Niguel.
There you go. It's in Laguna Niguel. Just look it up on the interwebs. Sure you'll be able to find it. I'm at Mark Smelly Bell on Instagram and Twitter. Multiply your hustle, multiply your muscle, and may all your shits be tapered.
I'm Jim McD, STTV, everywhere that I would want you to find me. Follow the show on Instagram at Mark Bell's PowerCast. Thanks to our sponsors, HowMuchYouBench.net, ThePowerMagazine.com, CompexUSA.com, RogueFitness.com, 8manstrong.com, CavemanCoffeeCo.com, Harrys.com, and Bodybuilding.com.
Mark Bell's PowerCast is a production of SuperTraining.tv.